Hey guys, this is Stacy from EatTheBite.com, and today I'm making a gourmet dinner for two of steak au poivre with potatoes au gratin. Let me show you how to make it. First, we'll cube some cheese for the potatoes au gratin. I have a stack of sliced American cheese, and I'm going to take a chunk of that to cut it. I'll start by cutting it into thick strips, and then dicing it down into cubes from there. I'm also shredding a little cheddar cheese as well, then I'll set both of my cheeses aside. Next, I'm peeling a few potatoes, and I'll set those aside as well. Then I'll dice a little bit of onion for the potatoes au gratin, and I'll also set some of this aside for the steak au poivre sauce too. It should be finely diced like this. I'm slicing all my potatoes into rounds that are about 1/4 inch in thickness, and I'll be baking these in an 11 by 7 inch baking dish. We're going to line up the potatoes into rows like you see here, and once all the potatoes are overlapping like this, I'm going to add those finely diced onions to the top. Then we'll season with a little salt. Spread out all the cubes of the American cheese, and then distribute the shredded cheddar on top as well. Next, I'll pour the milk all throughout the potatoes. And the potatoes will bubble over while cooking, so I'm going to wrap a sheet pan in some foil and place the potatoes on top of that. Next, we're going to cook these in a preheated oven at 375 degrees for about 40 to 45 minutes. While those are cooking, I'll get the steaks ready. I'll start by finely dicing some garlic. And next, you will need whole peppercorns for this, which will grind coarsely. I'm using a mortar and pestle, but you can use a plastic bag and a mallet if that's what you have on hand. I put a small piece of plastic in there in the beginning so the peppercorns don't fly out of the mortar. Then I just smash the peppercorns for a bit. I'll remove that plastic. Then I'll grind it down until it's a little bit more coarse and looks about like this. I bought a package of 2 filet mignon steaks that came in at just about £1 for $14. That's $7 per steak and a huge bargain considering you'd pay about $30 for each steak at a restaurant. So I'm going to season my steaks with a light sprinkling of salt on the top. I'll turn them over. Do a light sprinkling of salt on the other side as well. And now the pepper. We're going to add a thin layer of pepper to the top of the steak only. We'll sprinkle the pepper on the top and we'll rub it in and gently press it a little bit as you go, so it looks about like this at the end. This is steak au poivre, which means pepper steak, so we want that pepper crust on the top. I've had some canola oil heating in a pan on high heat, and I've also got my onions, garlic, butter, pepper, and cognac ready to go. I'll add my steaks to the pan pepper side down. Then we're going to let those cook on high heat for 5 minutes. Right before it was time to turn the steaks, the potatoes are ready, and I'm going to let those cool while the steaks are finishing. At the 5-minute mark, I turned the steaks over, and that smaller steak got a little rounded, so I pressed on that for a couple of seconds to even it out. Then let the steaks cook another 4 to 5 minutes for medium rare, so a few extra minutes if you want it less pink. And I did want to get a little sear on the sides of the steak as well, so I turned them on their sides for a few seconds, and then I did the same for the other side as well. Once the steaks are done, I transfer them to a small sheet pan so they can rest for about 5 to 10 minutes. Now it's time for the sauce. We're going to add some butter to that same pan the steaks were in, the onions, a pinch of fresh pepper, that little bit of garlic. Now we're going to stir the onions and garlic for a bit, add another chunk of butter. We're going to let that butter melt in with the onions, garlic, and that little bit of steak juice that was in the pan. So we'll stir it for a minute or two like this, and we'll be adding cognac to the pan, so be very careful when you pour it in because it can catch on fire. Lower your flame or pull your pan off the burner to do this. So I carefully poured in that cognac, and now I'm going to give it a stir until it comes to a simmering boil. We're going to let most of the cognac cook off, so this will be reduced by about 3/4. And after 4 to 5 minutes, it is mostly reduced and should look like this in your pan. Now it's time to add the beef broth. We're going to whisk this around, still on medium heat, and at a slow simmery boil like you see here. We need to reduce this by about half, which will take a few minutes. So even after just a couple of minutes, we can see the slight reduction here. So just give it another mix, and in that last stage, it's reduced by half and darkened, and now it's time to add the heavy cream. I measured a 1/4 cup of heavy cream and stirred it in a little bit at a time. I prefer a darker sauce, so I didn't use all the cream. Next, we're going to add a little bit more butter and stir that into the sauce to help thicken it a bit. I transferred my steaks to a plate, and I do want to go ahead and add that juice from the steak right into that sauce. Give it a stir, and I decided to add another pinch of that fresh pepper. This is optional, and you should add the fresh pepper to your taste preference. I did taste it, and I didn't think it needed any additional salt here since it had the salt in the pan from cooking the steaks. And now we're ready to plate our dinner for two. So we've got our awesome potatoes au gratin, our 2 pepper-crusted filet mignon, and the steak au poivre sauce. I'll scoop some of the potatoes onto each plate, and then I'm going to spoon some of that delicious sauce onto both of the steaks. You can add a little more fresh pepper here if you want, and I also added some fresh chopped parsley as a garnish, which is optional. And let's take a closer look at our dinner for two of steak au poivre with potatoes au gratin. And now it's time to eat the bite. I cut into my steak and it was perfect medium rare. Filet mignon is a tender, lean cut, and paired with that cognac and cream sauce, it's got fantastic flavor. The peppery crust on the steak, the sauce, the cheesy potatoes, this is a winning combination for sure. If you want to make a gourmet dinner for two for Valentine's Day, I highly recommend you give this one a try. That's all for now, guys. If you enjoyed this video, you should definitely like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. And as always, you'll find this and all the printable recipes over on my website at eatthebite.com. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. These are not equal in size, I understand that, so one person's gonna get the bigger steak, but it's okay. That means the person who got the smaller steak gets all the extra potatoes au gratin. That's how I roll.